Petty Officer Second Class Maria Santos had always been underestimated. Standing barely 5 feet 4 inches tall with a slight build, she looked more like a college student than a Navy service member. Her dark hair was always pulled back in regulation style, and her brown eyes held a quiet intensity that most people missed. For the past 3 years, she had worked as a supply clerk at Naval Station Norfolk, managing inventory and processing requisitions. It was honest work, important work, but it wasn't what she had dreamed of when she first enlisted. Every morning, Maria arrived at the supply depot before dawn. She would unlock the massive warehouse doors and flip on the fluorescent lights that buzzed and flickered to life, illuminating rows upon rows of shelves stocked with everything from toilet paper to tactical gear. Her job was to keep track of it all, to make sure every bolt, every uniform, every piece of equipment was accounted for and ready when needed. She took pride in her work, maintaining the most organized inventory system the depot had ever seen. But Maria had a secret. Every evening after her shift ended, she would drive to a small gym 20 minutes off base. There, in a converted warehouse that smelled of sweat and determination, she trained with a group of former Special Operations personnel. The gym was run by Chief Petty Officer Jake, a retired Navy SEAL who had lost his leg in Afghanistan but had lost none of his edge. Jake had noticed something in Maria during a chance encounter at a base fitness challenge 6 months earlier. She had outperformed sailors twice her size and showed a mental toughness that couldn't be taught. The training was brutal. Jake put Maria through the same workouts he had endured during Bud S training 20 years earlier. She would arrive exhausted from her day job only to spend 3 hours doing endless, carrying heavy logs, swimming in the frigid Atlantic, and learning advanced combat techniques. Her hands were constantly scraped and bruised, her body ached in places she didn't know existed, but she never complained. Not once. Maria's fellow supply clerks thought she was crazy. During lunch breaks, while they discussed weekend plans and complained about their supervisors, Maria would disappear to the base gym for additional training. She studied military tactics during her breaks, reading everything from Sun to modern special operations manuals. Her joke that she took her job too seriously, that she acted like she was preparing for war instead of managing a supply depot. What they didn't know was that Maria had tried to become a Navy SEAL 3 times. Each time she had been told that women weren't allowed in the program. Each time she had been encouraged to consider other career paths more suitable for her gender and size. Each time she had smiled politely and returned to her supply clerk duties, but the fire inside her had never dimmed. She knew that the military was slowly changing, that barriers were gradually falling, but change was happening too slowly for her liking. Chief saw something in Maria that reminded him of his best teammates from his SEAL days. It wasn't her physical strength, though she had worked hard to build that. It wasn't her endurance, though she could outrun most of the men at the gym. It was her mind. She had a tactical instinct that couldn't be taught and a calmness under pressure that was rare even among special operations veterans. During training exercises, while other students would panic or freeze, Maria would assess, adapt, and execute with a precision that amazed even Jake. One evening, as Maria finished a particularly grueling training session, Chief pulled her aside. "Santos," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a towel, "I've been doing this for 25 years. I've trained hundreds of people, many of them special operations qualified. You have something that most of them never had." Maria looked at him skeptically. She had heard encouragement before, but it never seemed to lead anywhere. "I'm serious," continued. "You have the mind of a warrior. Your body is getting stronger every day, but your tactical thinking is already at an elite level. I've seen you solve problems in training that stumped guys with decades of experience." He paused, studying her face. "The military is changing. Women are being allowed into combat roles now. The SEAL program might open up to women soon. When it does, you need to be ready." Maria felt a surge of hope mixed with familiar disappointment. She had heard similar predictions before, and each time the promises of change had proven premature. But there was something different about the way he spoke, a confidence that suggested he knew something she didn't. "What are you saying, Chief?" she asked. "I'm saying that when the opportunity comes, you'll be ready. But more than that, I'm saying that you're already better prepared than most candidates who make it through the program. Your problem isn't ability, it's opportunity." Looked toward the gym where other students were still training. "Keep working hard, keep studying, keep believing, and when your chance comes, take it without hesitation." Over the next several months, Maria's training intensified. Introduced advanced marksmanship, close quarters combat, and specialized insertion techniques. She learned to handle weapons she had never seen in the supply depot, from sniper rifles to explosive devices. Her accuracy with both pistols and rifles was exceptional, but more importantly, she remained calm and focused under the stress of simulated combat scenarios. The other students at the gym began to take notice. These were men and women with military, law enforcement, and security backgrounds, people who had seen real combat and understood what it took to excel in dangerous situations. Slowly, their initial skepticism about the small supply clerk gave way to respect and eventually to admiration. Maria wasn't just keeping up with seasoned professionals, she was often outperforming them. During one particularly challenging exercise, set up a simulated hostage rescue scenario. Students had to breach a building, neutralize multiple targets, and extract civilians while under fire from hidden shooters using paintball weapons. Most students took several attempts to complete the course successfully. Maria studied the layout for 10 minutes, then completed it flawlessly on her first try. She moved through the building like water, fluid and precise, eliminating threats with surgical accuracy while keeping the hostages safe. After the exercise, one of the other students, a former Army Ranger named Tom Bradley, shook his head in amazement. "Santos, I've seen special operations soldiers with years of experience who couldn't run that course like you just did. Where did you learn to move like that?" Maria just smiled and said she had been paying attention during training. But the truth was deeper than that. She had an instinctive understanding of tactics and battlefield awareness that couldn't be taught. Word of Maria's abilities began to spread quietly through certain circles. Had friends throughout the special operations community, and he started making discreet inquiries about opportunities. He learned that the Navy was indeed considering opening SEAL training to women, but the timeline remained uncertain. More immediately, he discovered that special operations units were always looking for personnel with unique skills for specific missions, regardless of their official military occupational specialty. One Friday afternoon, as Maria was completing her weekly inventory report, her supervisor, Lieutenant Commander Hayes, called her into the office. Hayes was a career supply officer who had worked her way up through the ranks over 20 years. She was known for being fair but demanding, and Maria had always respected her leadership. "Santos," Hayes began, "I've been reviewing your performance evaluations, and I have to say your work here has been exemplary. Your inventory accuracy rates are the best we've ever seen, and your efficiency improvements have saved the Navy thousands of dollars." Maria thanked her, wondering where this conversation was heading. Hayes continued, "That's why I was surprised to receive a call yesterday from someone at Naval Special Warfare Command asking about your qualifications and availability for a special assignment." Maria's heart began to race. She tried to keep her expression neutral, but Hayes noticed the change immediately. "Is there something you want to tell me, Petty Officer Santos? Because according to my records, you're a supply specialist, not a special operations candidate." Hayes' tone wasn't accusatory, but it was definitely curious. Maria realized that her secret training had somehow come to the attention of people who mattered. "Ma'am, I've been pursuing additional training in my off-duty hours," Maria replied carefully. "Physical fitness and tactical skills that I thought might make me a more well-rounded sailor." It was technically true, though it didn't capture the full extent of her preparation. Hayes studied her for a long moment. "Santos, I've been in the Navy for 20 years, and I've learned to recognize people who are destined for bigger things than their current assignment. I don't know what kind of training you've been doing or who you've impressed, but someone with significant influence thinks you might be right for a very specialized mission." Maria felt her pulse quicken. This was the opportunity she had been preparing for, but she had never expected it to come while she was still officially a supply clerk. "What kind of mission, ma'am?" she asked. "I can't give you details," Hayes replied, "because I don't have them. What I can tell you is that you've been selected for a temporary assignment with a joint special operations task force. The assignment could last anywhere from a few weeks to several months, and it will require skills that aren't typically associated with supply management." Hayes paused. "Are you interested?" Maria didn't hesitate. "Yes, ma'am, absolutely." Hayes smiled. "I thought you might say that. Report to Building 1247 at 600 Monday morning. Ask for Commander Sarah Mitchell. And Santos." Hayes' expression became serious. "I don't know what you're walking into, but based on who's asking for you, it's important. Don't let us down." That weekend, Maria told Chief about the assignment. He wasn't surprised. "I may have mentioned your name to a few people," he admitted with a grin. Someone needs personnel for a mission that requires a unique combination of skills. They need someone who can blend in, who understands logistics and supply systems, but who can also handle themselves in a combat situation if necessary. "What do you think it is?" Maria asked. His expression became serious. "I think it's your chance to prove that talent doesn't care about job titles or gender. You've been training like a special operations professional for months. Now you get to be one, at least temporarily." He looked her in the eye. "You ready for this?" Maria thought about all the hours of training, all the doubt and disappointment she had endured, all the times she had been told she didn't belong in the world of special operations. Then she thought about the opportunity that was finally presenting itself. "I've been ready for years, Chief. I just needed someone to give me a chance." Monday morning arrived gray and drizzly, typical weather for Norfolk in November. Maria arrived at Building 1247 15 minutes early, dressed in her best utility uniform with her hair pulled back in a tight bun. The building was nondescript from the outside, but she noticed the security measures immediately. Guards at the entrance, restricted parking areas, and windows that looked like they were designed to prevent anyone from seeing inside. After checking in with security and having her identification twice, Maria was escorted to a conference room on the second floor. The room was sparse, containing only a conference table, several chairs, and a large screen mounted on one wall. She was told to wait, so she stood at attention until the door opened 5 minutes later. Commander Sarah Mitchell entered the room, followed by two other officers Maria didn't recognize. Mitchell was tall and athletic, with short hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to command. Her uniform bore insignia that indicated special operations qualifications, and her handshake was firm and confident. "Petty Officer Santos," Mitchell said, "thank you for coming. Please take a seat." The three officers sat across from Maria, and Mitchell opened a folder that contained what appeared to be her personnel file, though it looked much thicker than it should have been for a supply clerk. "I'll be direct," Mitchell continued. "We have a situation that requires someone with your unique combination of skills and background. You have an exemplary record as a supply specialist, but more importantly, you have extensive tactical training that most people in your position wouldn't pursue. We know about your work with Chief and your performance in training exercises." Maria wondered how much they actually knew, but she remained quiet and listened. "In 3 days, you'll be deploying with a small team to provide logistical support for a joint operation in the Mediterranean. Officially, you'll be there to manage supplies and coordinate with local contractors. Unofficially, you may be called upon to use skills that aren't typically required of supply personnel." Mitchell paused. "Are you prepared for that possibility?" "Yes, ma'am," Maria replied without hesitation. "Good, because based on intelligence reports, there's a significant chance that this mission won't go according to plan. We need people who can adapt quickly and handle themselves in unpredictable situations." Mitchell looked at the other officers, then back at Maria. "You'll be working with a team of experienced operators, but they don't know about your tactical training. As far as they're concerned, you're just a very competent supply clerk who happens to be physically fit." Maria understood. She would be undercover, in a sense, even among her own teammates. It made perfect sense from an operational security standpoint, but it also meant she would have to prove herself all over again if the situation demanded it. The briefing continued for 2 hours, covering mission objectives, team composition, and operational procedures. Maria learned that she would be one of 6 personnel deploying to a small base in Italy, where they would coordinate supply operations for a multinational counterterrorism effort. The mission was expected to be routine, but recent intelligence suggested that terrorist organizations in the region were planning attacks on coalition supply lines. As the briefing concluded, Commander Mitchell handed Maria a new set of orders and a packet of travel documents. "Santos, I want you to understand something. You weren't chosen for this mission just because you're a good supply clerk. You were chosen because we believe you have the potential to be much more than that. This assignment is an opportunity to prove it, both to us and to yourself." Maria left the building feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. After years of preparation and dreaming, she was finally getting a chance to do something significant. But she also knew that the mission carried real risks, and that her performance could determine whether she would ever get another opportunity like this. Over the next 3 days, Maria prepared with the same intensity she had brought to her training. She studied the mission materials until she had memorized every detail, practiced her weapons handling skills, and completed her physical conditioning. She also spent time at the supply depot, making sure her replacement would be able to maintain her systems and procedures. On Thursday evening, as she packed her deployment bag, Maria reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From a childhood in a small Texas town where she had been told that girls couldn't be soldiers, through years of military service where she had been consistently underestimated, to the countless hours of training with Chief, everything had led to this moment. She thought about what Commander Mitchell had said about proving herself. Maria had been proving herself her entire life, but this time felt different. This time, she wasn't just trying to show that she belonged. She was being given a chance to demonstrate capabilities that few people even knew she possessed. As she closed her bag and prepared for a few hours of sleep before her early morning departure, Maria felt a calm confidence settle over her. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had prepared for this opportunity for years, and now it was time to show the world what a supply clerk could really do when given the chance. The alarm clock would ring at 400, and by 800 she would be on a transport aircraft heading for Italy. Maria Santos, officially a supply clerk but secretly one of the most prepared special operations candidates in the Navy, was finally getting her chance to prove that potential doesn't care about job titles or other. The transport aircraft touched down at Naval Air Station in Sicily at 14:30 hours local time. Maria gathered her gear and stepped off the plane into the Mediterranean heat, squinting against the bright afternoon sun. The base was smaller than Norfolk, but bustling with activity. Aircraft from multiple nations sat on the tarmac, and personnel in different uniforms moved with the purposeful efficiency that characterized joint operations. Maria was met by Staff Sergeant Mike, a Marine Corps logistics coordinator who would be her primary liaison during the deployment. Was stocky and weathered, with the kind of tan that came from years of overseas assignments. His handshake was firm, and his smile was genuine, but Maria noticed how his eyes quickly assessed her from head to toe. She was accustomed to that look. It was the expression of someone trying to figure out if she was capable of handling the demands of the assignment. "Welcome to Sicily, Santos," said as he led her toward a waiting vehicle. "Hope you're ready to work, because we've got supply chains stretching from here to 3 different countries, and half of them are running behind schedule." As they drove toward the logistics compound, briefed her on the current situation. The mission was more complex than the initial briefing had suggested. Coalition forces were conducting operations against terrorist networks that had been targeting infrastructure and supply lines throughout the Mediterranean region. The base in Sicily served as a central hub, coordinating the movement of personnel, equipment, and supplies to smaller forward operating bases in Italy, Greece, and North Africa. "Your job," explained, "is to manage the flow of specialized equipment and sensitive materials. Some of this stuff is so classified that only people with your security clearance can even touch it." He glanced at her with renewed interest. "Supply clerks don't usually rate that kind of clearance. What's your story, Santos?" Maria had expected this question and had prepared an answer that was technically truthful. "I've always been interested in logistics and supply chain management. I pursued additional training and education to make myself more valuable to the Navy. I guess it paid off when they needed someone for this assignment." Nodded, seemingly satisfied with the explanation. "Well, whatever you did, it worked. This assignment is a big deal. Do well here, and it could open doors for you in the special operations community." They arrived at the logistics compound, a collection of warehouses and office buildings surrounded by high fences and security checkpoints. Maria was introduced to the rest of the team. Captain Tom Bradley, an Army officer who served as the overall logistics commander. Lieutenant Sarah, a Navy supply officer who managed general provisions, and 2 enlisted specialists, Petty Officer First Class Dave Wilson and Sergeant Maria, who handled transportation and distribution. The team was professional and competent, but Maria quickly sensed the dynamic she would be dealing with. As the most junior member, she would need to prove herself before earning their full trust and respect. This was familiar territory for her, and she was prepared for the challenge. Captain Bradley briefed her on her specific responsibilities. She would be managing the movement of specialized communications equipment, advanced weapon systems, and other sensitive materials that required enhanced security protocols. The work would involve coordinating with civilian contractors, foreign military personnel, and special operations units from multiple countries. "The key to success here," Bradley explained, "is attention to detail and the ability to adapt quickly when plans change. And trust me, plans change constantly in this environment. He handed her a thick folder containing operational procedures and contact information. Study this tonight. Tomorrow you'll start working with real convoys and real deadlines. Maria spent the evening in her quarters, a small but comfortable room in the officers' billeting area, reviewing the operational procedures and memorizing the organizational chart for the mission. The complexity was impressive. Dozens of units from 6 different countries were involved, each with their own protocols and requirements. Coordinating the logistics for such an operation required not just organizational skills, but also cultural awareness and diplomatic sensitivity. As she studied, Maria noticed something that concerned her. Several of the forward operating bases were located in areas with recent terrorist activity. Supply convoys were following predictable routes and schedules, making them vulnerable to ambush. The security protocols seemed adequate for normal operations, but Maria's tactical training made her acutely aware of potential weaknesses in the system. The next morning, Maria reported to the Logistics Operations Center at 600. The center was a large room filled with computers, communication equipment, and status boards tracking the location and movement of supplies throughout the region. The energy was intense but controlled, with personnel coordinating movements and solving problems with the efficiency of a well-rehearsed orchestra. Lieutenant assigned Maria to shadow sergeant for her first day, learning the procedures for tracking and coordinating specialized shipments. Was experienced and competent, but Maria noticed that she relied heavily on established procedures without questioning whether those procedures were optimal for current conditions. "This is how we've always done it," explained as she showed Maria the routing system for sensitive shipments. "The routes are planned by intelligence specialists who know where the threats are. Our job is to follow the plan and make sure everything arrives on schedule." Maria nodded and took notes, but she was already thinking about ways the system could be improved. The routes were indeed planned by intelligence specialists, but they were planned days in advance and weren't adjusted for real-time changes in the threat environment. A convoy following a route that had been safe 3 days earlier might be walking into an ambush if terrorists had learned the schedule. Over the next week, Maria threw herself into the work with her characteristic intensity. She mastered the procedures quickly and began making small improvements that increased efficiency without disrupting established protocols. Her inventory tracking was flawless, her coordination with contractors was smooth, and her ability to solve unexpected problems impressed the entire team. But Maria was also conducting her own informal intelligence analysis. During breaks and after-duty hours, she studied maps, analyzed convoy schedules, and tracked patterns in reported terrorist activity. What she discovered worried her. The terrorists were learning the coalition's patterns and adapting their tactics accordingly. Recent attacks had shown increasing sophistication and precise timing that suggested inside knowledge of convoy schedules. 2 weeks into her deployment, Maria's concerns proved justified. A convoy carrying communications equipment to a forward base in southern Italy was attacked by a well-coordinated terrorist team. The attackers knew exactly when and where the convoy would be most vulnerable, striking during a scheduled stop at a checkpoint where security was temporarily reduced. 3 soldiers were wounded, and valuable equipment was destroyed. The attack prompted a security review of all logistics operations. Captain Bradley called a meeting of the entire logistics team to discuss enhanced security measures and procedural changes. As they reviewed the details of the attack, Maria realized that her tactical training gave her insights that the rest of the team lacked. "The timing was too precise to be coincidental," Maria said during the discussion. "They knew our schedule, our route, and our security procedures. This wasn't a crime of opportunity. It was a carefully planned operation based on inside intelligence." Captain Bradley looked at her with surprise. Supply clerks weren't expected to provide tactical analysis, but Maria's assessment was clearly well-reasoned. "What are you suggesting, Santos?" Maria had prepared for this moment. She knew that offering tactical advice would reveal knowledge beyond what a typical supply clerk should possess, but the safety of coalition personnel was more important than maintaining her cover. "Sir, I think we need to randomize our schedules and routes more effectively. We should also implement enhanced counterintelligence measures to protect our operational information." The room was quiet for a moment. Then Lieutenant spoke up. "Santos makes good points, but implementing those changes would require approval from Special Operations Command. And frankly, tactical analysis isn't typically part of logistics coordination." Maria realized she was at a crossroads. She could back down and return to her assigned duties, or she could reveal more of her capabilities and risk exposure. Before she could decide, Captain Bradley's secure phone rang. He answered it, listened for several minutes, then hung up with a grim expression. "That was command," Bradley announced. "Intelligence indicates that terrorist groups are planning a major offensive against coalition supply lines. All non-essential operations are being suspended, and we're implementing enhanced security protocols immediately." He looked around the room. "We're also getting reinforced with a special operations team that will provide security for critical shipments." Over the next few days, the pace of operations intensified dramatically. The logistics center operated around the clock as the team worked to reconfigure supply routes and schedules according to new security requirements. The special operations team arrived and immediately began implementing changes that Maria recognized from her training with Chief. The special operations team was led by Lieutenant Commander Alex Carter, a Navy SEAL with multiple combat deployments. Carter was professional but distant, clearly focused on his mission rather than building relationships with the logistics personnel. During the initial briefing, he explained that his team would provide security for the most sensitive shipments, while the logistics team maintained responsibility for planning and coordination. Maria found herself working closely with Carter's team as they planned routes and schedules for upcoming missions. She was impressed by their tactical knowledge, but noticed that they lacked understanding of the logistical constraints that governed supply operations. Several times, they proposed security measures that would have been tactically sound but logistically impossible. During one planning session, Carter became frustrated with what he saw as unnecessary complications in the supply chain. "Why can't we just fly everything to the forward bases instead of using these vulnerable ground convoys?" he asked. "Because air transport capacity is limited, and we're already using every available aircraft for priority missions," Maria replied. "Ground convoys can carry heavier loads and operate in weather conditions that would ground aircraft. The key is making the ground routes more secure, not eliminating them entirely." Carter looked at her with the same surprise Captain Bradley had shown earlier. "You seem to know a lot about tactical considerations for a supply clerk," he observed. Maria chose her words carefully. "I make it a point to understand all aspects of the operations I support, sir. It helps me do my job more effectively." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the complete truth either. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from one of the forward operating bases. A critical medical supply convoy was overdue, and the base had lost radio contact with the security escort. Intelligence reports indicated possible terrorist activity in the area, but the exact status of the convoy was unknown. Commander Carter immediately began organizing a rescue mission, but the planning revealed a significant problem. The convoy's last known position was in an area that his team hadn't surveyed, and current intelligence about enemy dispositions was incomplete. A rescue mission launched without adequate preparation could easily become a disaster. "We need someone who knows the area and understands the enemy's typical tactics," Carter said as he studied maps of the region. "But our local contacts aren't available, and satellite intelligence is hours old." Captain Bradley looked around the room, then focused on Maria. "Santos, you've been studying terrorist patterns and analyzing their tactics. What's your assessment of the situation?" Maria realized that this was the moment she had been preparing for her entire career. She could provide a safe, conventional answer that stayed within her supposed area of expertise, or she could offer the tactical analysis that might save lives. The choice was obvious. "Based on recent attack patterns, the convoy was most likely hit at one of three along their route," Maria said, moving to the map display. "The terrorists prefer locations where they can control the terrain and have multiple escape routes. If the convoy is intact, they'll be at this location." She pointed to a spot on the map. "It's defensible but has limited access routes, which means a small rescue team could approach without being detected." Carter studied the map, then looked at Maria with new interest. "That's a very sophisticated tactical analysis. Where did you learn to think like this?" Before Maria could answer, the secure communication system came alive with an urgent transmission. The convoy had managed to get a brief radio message through, confirming their location and status. They were exactly where Maria had predicted, under attack but still fighting. The transmission ended abruptly, suggesting that their situation was deteriorating rapidly. Commander Carter made his decision immediately. We're launching a rescue mission now. Bradley, I need your best logistics coordinator to help with route planning and supply coordination. He looked directly at Maria. Santos, you're coming with us. I want that tactical analysis capability in the field. Captain Bradley started to object. Sir, Santos is a supply clerk, not a combat operator. Sending her on a rescue mission would be outside normal protocols. Carter's response was decisive. Normal protocols aren't working today. Santos has demonstrated tactical knowledge that we need, and time is running out for that convoy. He turned to Maria. Are you prepared to participate in a combat mission? Maria felt her heart racing, but her voice was steady when she replied. Yes, sir, I'm ready. Within 30 minutes, Maria found herself in the back of a military transport helicopter, wearing combat gear and carrying equipment she had only used in training exercises. The Special Operations team treated her with professional courtesy but obvious skepticism. She was clearly out of place among the seasoned combat veterans, and she knew she would have to prove herself quickly once they reached the objective. As the helicopter flew toward the convoy's location, Maria reviewed everything she knew about the tactical situation. The convoy consisted of 3 vehicles with a security escort of 8 soldiers. Intelligence reports suggested they were facing a terrorist force of 15 to 20 fighters with small arms and possibly rocket-propelled grenades. The terrain was mountainous with limited visibility, which would complicate both the rescue and any potential escape. Commander Carter briefed his team over the helicopter's communication system. Our objective is to reach the convoy, provide immediate support, and evacuate casualties if necessary. Santos will coordinate with the convoy's logistics personnel to determine what supplies can be recovered and what needs to be destroyed to prevent capture. Maria realized that her official role in the mission was still tied to her logistics background, but she also understood that the situation might require her to do much more than coordinate supplies. She checked her equipment one final time and prepared mentally for whatever challenges lay ahead. The helicopter began its descent toward the landing zone, and Maria could hear the distant sound of gunfire echoing through the mountains. Somewhere below, coalition soldiers were fighting for their lives, depending on the rescue team to reach them in time. Maria had trained for moments like this for years, but she had never imagined that her first real combat mission would come while she was officially serving as a supply clerk. As the helicopter touched down and the team prepared to move out, Maria felt a calm focus settle over her. This was what she had been preparing for since the first day she walked into Chief's gym. She was finally getting her chance to prove that she belonged among the elite warriors of the helicopter's rotors whipped dust and debris into a choking cloud, as Maria and the Special Operations team fast-roped to the ground. The landing zone was a small clearing about 2 kilometers from the convoy's last known position, chosen because it provided cover from observation while remaining close enough for a rapid approach. The moment her boots hit the rocky ground, Maria felt her training take over. Every lesson from Chief, every exercise she had completed, every tactical manual she had studied suddenly became real and urgent. Commander Carter signaled for the team to form up in tactical formation. Maria found herself positioned in the middle of the group, which was standard procedure for someone who was supposed to be providing support rather than combat capabilities. The team consisted of 6 SEALs, all veterans with multiple deployments, and Maria could feel their skepticism about bringing a supply clerk into a combat zone. She didn't blame them. From their perspective, she was a potential liability who might slow them down or require protection when they should be focused on the mission. The terrain was challenging, consisting of rocky slopes covered with sparse vegetation and carved by deep ravines. The Mediterranean heat made every step feel like an effort, and the weight of combat gear was distributed differently than the training equipment Maria was accustomed to. But her conditioning was solid, and she kept pace with the team without showing signs of strain. As they moved toward the convoy's position, the sound of gunfire became more distinct. Maria could distinguish between different types of weapons based on their sound signatures. A skilled chief had taught her during countless hours of training. The rapid chatter of automatic rifles indicated that the convoy's security team was still fighting, but the irregular pattern of fire suggested they were running low on ammunition or had taken casualties. Commander Carter called a halt about 500 meters from the target area. Using hand signals, he positioned his team for observation and tactical assessment. Through binoculars, They could see the convoy's 3 vehicles positioned in a defensive circle on a small plateau. The convoy had clearly been caught in an ambush, with disabled vehicles and evidence of sustained combat visible even at distance. The terrorist force had positioned themselves in the rocks above the convoy, using the high ground to maintain fire superiority. Maria counted muzzle flashes from at least 12 different positions, confirming intelligence estimates about enemy strength. What worried her more was the tactical sophistication of their positions. This wasn't a random group of fighters. It was a well-trained unit that understood military tactics and had prepared their ambush site carefully. Assessment, Carter asked quietly, looking at his team leader. Petty Officer First Class Jason Torres, Carter's senior enlisted man, studied the situation through his scope. Textbook L-shaped ambush, sir. They've got the convoy pinned down with interlocking fields of fire. Our guys are in good defensive positions, but they can't maneuver without exposing themselves to concentrated fire from the high ground. Maria listened to the tactical discussion while conducting her own analysis of the situation. The SEAL team was planning a frontal assault that would use their superior training and firepower to overwhelm the terrorist positions. It was a sound plan that would likely succeed, but it would also result in casualties among both the rescue team and the convoy personnel. Sir, Maria said quietly, request permission to offer an alternative approach. Carter looked at her with surprise. Santos, you're here to coordinate logistics, not plan tactical operations. Yes, sir, but I've been studying the terrain and enemy positions. I think there might be a way to reduce casualties on both sides. Maria knew she was stepping far outside her supposed area of expertise, but the situation demanded it. Torres gave her a skeptical look. Supply clerks don't usually provide tactical recommendations, Santos. Maria took a deep breath. This was the moment when she would either establish credibility with the team or confirm their worst fears about bringing a non-combatant into a combat zone. Sir, during my spare time, I've studied special operations tactics extensively. I believe I can contribute meaningfully to the mission planning process. Carter studied her face for a long moment. You have 2 minutes to explain your alternative approach, but understand that if this goes badly, the responsibility is mine, not yours. Maria pointed to the map and began explaining her analysis. The terrorist positions are oriented toward the convoy, which means they have limited visibility toward their rear approaches. There's a ravine that runs along the eastern side of their position that would allow a small team to approach undetected. If we can get 2 people into position behind their lines, we can create a crossfire that will force them to choose between defending against the frontal assault or protecting their rear. She traced the route on the map. The approach would be difficult and time-consuming, but it would divide the enemy's attention and reduce their ability to concentrate fire on any single target. More importantly, it would give the convoy an opportunity to maneuver to a more defensible position or even break contact entirely. Torres examined the route Maria had identified. The ravine approach is possible, but it would require someone with advanced climbing skills and the ability to move silently through hostile territory. Plus, whoever takes that route would be operating alone, without immediate support if things go wrong. Commander Carter nodded slowly. It's tactically sound, but Torres is right about the risks. We'd need our most experienced climbers for that approach, and even then, there's no guarantee they could get into position before the convoy's situation becomes critical. Maria realized this was her moment of truth. She could reveal her capabilities and volunteer for the dangerous assignment, or she could remain safely in her support role and let the team proceed with their original plan. But looking at the convoy's desperate situation and thinking about the soldiers who were depending on them for rescue, the choice was obvious. Sir, I volunteer to take the ravine approach, Maria said quietly. The reaction from the SEAL team was immediate and skeptical. Torres actually laughed. Santos, no offense, but this isn't a training exercise. That route requires advanced mountaineering skills, tactical movement techniques, and combat experience. You're a supply clerk. I understand your concerns, Maria replied, but I have extensive climbing experience and I've trained in tactical movement and advanced marksmanship. I know this is unusual, but I'm prepared to take the assignment. Commander Carter looked at her intently. Santos, what exactly have you been doing in your spare time? Because your knowledge of tactics and your confidence in dangerous situations are way beyond what I'd expect from someone in your position. Maria made a decision that would change everything. Sir, for the past 2 years I've been training with former Special Operations personnel in advanced combat skills. I've completed courses equivalent to much of the Bud-S curriculum, and I've consistently scored at the top of my training classes in marksmanship, tactical movement, and combat leadership. The silence that followed was profound. Finally, Torres spoke. Are you telling us that you're basically an unofficial SEAL candidate who happens to work as a supply clerk? That's a fair assessment, Maria replied. I've been preparing for an opportunity to join the Special Operations community, but gender restrictions and administrative barriers have prevented me from pursuing that path through normal channels. Carter studied her for another long moment, then made his decision. Torres, assess her equipment and readiness for the ravine approach. If she's as prepared as she claims, we'll modify the plan to include her route. If not, we proceed with the original assault. Over the next 10 minutes, Torres put Maria through an abbreviated version of the assessment process used to evaluate new team members. He checked her weapons handling, tactical knowledge, physical conditioning, and mental preparedness. What he found clearly surprised him. Sir, Torres reported to Carter, her weapons handling is better than some SEALs I've worked with. Her tactical knowledge is solid, and her physical condition is outstanding. More importantly, she's calm under pressure and thinks clearly in stressful situations. Carter nodded. All right, Santos, you get your chance to prove yourself, but understand that if you can't complete the mission, people die. Are you absolutely certain you're ready for this responsibility? Maria looked at the convoy's desperate situation, then back at Commander Carter. Sir, I've been ready for this my entire career. I won't let the team down. The modified plan called for Maria to take the ravine approach, while the main SEAL team prepared for a coordinated assault from the front. The timing would be critical. Maria needed to be in position and ready to engage before the main assault began. If she was delayed or detected, the entire operation could fail. Maria checked her equipment one final time: rifle with scope and suppressor, sidearm, climbing gear, communication equipment, and emergency medical supplies. Everything was properly secured and easily accessible. Chief's training had emphasized that equipment failures in combat were often fatal, so she had developed obsessive attention to detail when it came to gear preparation. Santos, Carter said as she prepared to move out, remember that your primary objective is to create confusion and divide the enemy's attention. You don't need to eliminate all of them. You just need to make them react to a threat from an unexpected direction. Once the main assault begins, your job is to provide supporting fire and help protect the convoy during their movement to safety. Maria nodded her understanding. Sir, what happens after the mission? When we get back to base, how do we explain my performance? Carter smiled grimly. Santos, if you perform the way I think you will, explaining your performance will be the least of our problems. There are going to be some very interested people asking questions about how a supply clerk ended up leading a flanking maneuver during a rescue operation. Maria began her approach to the ravine, moving with the controlled precision that Chief had drilled into her during countless training exercises. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated to minimize noise and avoid detection. The rocky terrain was treacherous, but her climbing experience allowed her to navigate it efficiently while maintaining tactical awareness of her surroundings. The ravine was deeper than it had appeared from the observation point, with walls that rose 15 feet on either side. The bottom was filled with loose rocks and debris that could easily cause injury or create noise if disturbed carelessly. Maria moved like a shadow, testing each step before committing her weight and constantly scanning for potential threats. As she progressed toward the terrorist positions, Maria could hear their voices echoing off the ravine walls. They were speaking in Arabic, which she understood reasonably well thanks to language training she had pursued as part of her preparation for special operations. What she heard concerned her. They were coordinating their fire and discussing tactics with the kind of precision that indicated military training. Maria reached her planned position behind the terrorist lines 45 minutes after beginning her approach. Through careful observation, she was able to identify 12 fighters positioned in a horseshoe formation around the convoy's location. Their weapons included assault rifles, machine guns, and at least 2 rocket-propelled grenade launchers. Most importantly, she confirmed that they had placed sentries watching their rear approaches, but those sentries were positioned poorly and could be neutralized quietly. Using her communication equipment, Maria reported her position to Commander Carter. Overwatch, this is Flanker. I'm in position and have positive identification on 12 enemy fighters. Request permission to engage sentries and begin diversion. Carter's voice came through her earpiece clearly. Flanker, you are cleared to engage. Main assault will commence 60 seconds after you initiate contact. Remember, your job is to create confusion, not eliminate all threats. Maria acknowledged the transmission and began moving toward the nearest sentry position. The terrorist was positioned behind a large boulder, watching the approaches to the terrorist position, but clearly not expecting any threat from the ravine direction. Maria approached from his blind spot, moving with the silent precision that Chief had taught her. The sentry never knew what hit him. Maria's training had included non-lethal takedown techniques, and she rendered him unconscious without making any sound that would alert his companions. She quickly secured his weapon and communication equipment, then moved toward the second sentry position. The second takedown was equally successful, leaving Maria with a clear view of the main terrorist positions. She could see the convoy clearly now, and the situation was worse than the initial intelligence had indicated. 2 of the 3 vehicles were severely damaged, and she could count only 4 coalition soldiers who appeared to be combat effective. The terrorists were maintaining steady pressure, clearly planning to overrun the position rather than simply pin it down. Maria positioned herself with a clear field of fire toward the terrorist positions and waited for the signal to begin the diversion. When Commander Carter's assault began, she would need to create maximum confusion while avoiding civilian casualties and friendly fire incidents. The margin for error was essentially 0. The sound of the main assault beginning was unmistakable. Carter's team approached from the front with controlled aggression, using movement and firepower to pressure the terrorist positions. As planned, the terrorists reacted by concentrating their fire toward the main threat, temporarily reducing pressure on the convoy. That was Maria's cue. She began engaging terrorist positions from their rear, using carefully aimed shots to eliminate specific threats while creating the impression that they were facing a larger force than actually existed. Her marksmanship training proved invaluable. Every shot found its target, and the terrorists began to panic as they realized they were being attacked from multiple directions. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Instead of maintaining their disciplined defense against Carter's assault, the terrorists broke into smaller groups and began firing in multiple directions. Some tried to retreat to more defensible positions, while others attempted to locate and eliminate the threat from their rear. The cohesive ambush that had trapped the convoy quickly disintegrated into a chaotic series of individual fights. Maria continued providing precision fire while communicating with Carter about terrorist movements and threats to the convoy. Her elevated position gave her excellent visibility of the entire battlefield, and her tactical training allowed her to coordinate effectively with the main assault team. She was no longer just a supply clerk supporting a rescue mission. She was functioning as an integral part of a special operations team. The battle lasted 18 minutes from start to finish. When the firing stopped, 6 terrorists were dead, 4 had been wounded and captured, and 2 had escaped into the surrounding mountains. More importantly, all surviving convoy personnel had been successfully evacuated, and no members of the rescue team had been seriously injured. As Maria climbed out of the ravine to rejoin the main team, she could see the expressions on the SEALs' faces. The skepticism and doubt had been replaced by respect and professional admiration. She had not only completed her assigned mission successfully, she had performed at a level that proved she belonged among elite special operations personnel. Commander Carter greeted her with a smile and a handshake that conveyed more than words could express. "Outstanding work, Santos. That flanking maneuver was textbook perfect, and your marksmanship was exceptional." He paused, studying her face. "I think we need to have a serious conversation about your future career plans when we get back to base." Torres nodded in agreement. "Santos, I've worked with a lot of special operations personnel over the years, and your performance today was as good as any I've seen. You've got skills that shouldn't be wasted in a supply depot." As the team prepared for extraction and evacuation of the convoy survivors, Maria reflected on what had just happened. In the span of a few hours, she had gone from being an underestimated supply clerk to proving herself as a capable special operations warrior. The mission had been dangerous and challenging, but it had also been exactly what she had been preparing for her entire career. The helicopter ride back to base was quiet, with team members processing the events of the day and tending to minor injuries sustained during the operation. Maria found herself thinking about what Commander Carter had said about her future career plans. She had proven that she could perform at the level required for special operations, but she still didn't know what opportunities might be available to her. What she did know was that there would be no going back to her old life as just a supply clerk. Too many people had witnessed her capabilities, and word would spread quickly through the special operations community. For better or worse, Maria Santos was about to become known as something very different from what her personnel file indicated. As the helicopter approached Naval Air Station, Maria could see activity on the ground that suggested their mission had attracted significant attention. Vehicles and personnel were positioned around the landing area in a way that indicated high-level interest in the operation's outcome. She realized that the next phase of her career was about to begin, and it would likely be even more challenging than what she had just experienced. The only question was whether the opportunities that lay ahead would match the dreams she had been pursuing for so many years. The debriefing room at Naval Air Station was larger than the one Maria remembered from her initial briefing, and it contained considerably more people. As she entered with Commander Carter and his team, she counted at least 12 officers representing various branches of the military and intelligence services. The atmosphere was formal but charged with interest, and Maria realized that her performance during the rescue mission had attracted attention at levels far above what she had expected. At the head of the conference table sat Rear Admiral, a woman Maria recognized from photographs as the Deputy Commander of Naval Special Warfare Command. Was known throughout the special operations community as a brilliant strategist and a strong advocate for expanding opportunities for qualified personnel regardless of traditional barriers. Her presence at this debriefing suggested that Maria's situation had implications far beyond a single rescue mission. "Please take a seat, everyone," Admiral said as the room settled. "Before we begin the formal debriefing, I want to acknowledge that yesterday's operation was executed with exceptional skill and resulted in the successful rescue of coalition personnel who would likely have been killed or captured otherwise." She looked directly at Maria. "Petty Officer Santos, your performance during this mission has been described to me as exemplary. I'm looking forward to hearing the details." Commander Carter stood and began his report, providing a chronological account of the mission from initial planning through final extraction. His presentation was crisp and professional, but Maria could hear the enthusiasm in his voice when he described her tactical analysis and execution of the flanking maneuver. Several times during the briefing, officers in the audience asked for clarification about Maria's role and capabilities. "Sir," asked Colonel James, an Army Special Operations officer, "can you clarify Petty Officer Santos's background? Her personnel file indicates that she's a supply specialist, but her performance suggests advanced tactical training." Commander Carter looked at Maria, who nodded her permission to provide details. "Sir, Petty Officer Santos has been conducting extensive tactical training in her off-duty hours for approximately 2 years. Her instructor was Chief Petty Officer Jake, a retired SEAL who confirmed that her capabilities are equivalent to those of personnel who have completed formal special operations training." Admiral leaned forward with interest. "Chief, I know Jake well. He's one of the best instructors we've ever had, and his standards are extremely high. If he vouches for someone's abilities, that carries significant weight with me." The questioning continued for another hour, with officers from various services asking detailed questions about Maria's performance, training background, and future aspirations. Maria answered honestly and completely, explaining her long-term goal of joining the special operations community and her frustration with traditional barriers that had prevented her from pursuing that path through normal channels. When the formal debriefing concluded, Admiral asked to speak privately with Maria. The two women walked to a smaller conference room where closed the door and activated a white noise device to ensure privacy. The Admiral's demeanor remained professional, but Maria sensed a more personal interest in their conversation. "Santos," began, "I want you to understand the significance of what happened yesterday. You didn't just perform well during a rescue mission. You proved that qualified individuals can contribute to special operations regardless of their official job classification or gender." She paused, studying Maria's face. "The question now is what we do with that proof." Maria had been thinking about this question since the helicopter ride back to base. "Ma'am, I'd like to formally apply for special operations training. I understand that there may be administrative challenges, but I believe I've demonstrated that I have the capabilities required for success in that community. Smiled, Santos, you've done more than demonstrate capabilities. You forced us to confront the fact that we may be overlooking qualified candidates because they don't fit traditional patterns. She opened a folder that had been sitting on the table. I've been reviewing your personnel file in detail, and your performance evaluations are consistently outstanding. More importantly, your security clearance and psychological evaluations indicate that you have the judgment and character we need in special operations personnel. The Admiral continued, the military is changing, Santos. We're finally recognizing that diversity of backgrounds and perspectives makes us stronger, not weaker. Your performance yesterday is going to be used as a case study in why we need to expand our recruiting and assessment processes. Maria felt a surge of excitement, but she also sensed that there were complications ahead. What kind of challenges are we likely to face, ma'am? Nodded approvingly at the question. Several. First, there will be resistance from traditionalists who believe that special operations should remain exclusive to personnel who follow conventional career paths. Second, there will be questions about how we assess and integrate personnel with non-traditional backgrounds. Third, there will be administrative and legal issues related to changing established procedures. She leaned back in her chair. But Santos, I want you to understand something important. You're not going to be fighting this battle alone. There are senior leaders throughout the military who have been looking for opportunities to expand special operations recruiting. Your performance has given us a concrete example of why that expansion is necessary. Over the next week, Maria found herself in a strange limbo. Officially, she was still a supply clerk assigned to the logistics operation in Sicily. Unofficially, she was spending most of her time in meetings with senior officers who wanted to understand her background and assess her potential for future assignments. The attention was flattering but also overwhelming, and she sometimes wondered if she had opened a door that she wasn't prepared to walk through. The breakthrough came during a secure video conference with Washington. Admiral had arranged for Maria to speak directly with the Chief of Naval Operations, Admiral Robert, who had been following her case with great interest. Admiral was known as a progressive leader who had championed diversity and innovation throughout his career. Petty Officer Santos, Admiral said from his office in the Pentagon, I've reviewed the reports from your recent mission, and I'm impressed not only by your performance but by the way you've prepared yourself for opportunities that didn't officially exist. That kind of initiative and dedication is exactly what we need in the modern military. Admiral continued, I'm authorized to offer you an opportunity that's never been available before. We're creating a pilot program for personnel with non-traditional backgrounds who demonstrate exceptional potential for special operations. You would be the first participant in this program, which means you'd be pioneering a path that could open doors for others in the future. Maria felt her heart racing, but she forced herself to think clearly about the implications. Sir, what would this program involve? Formal special operations training, customized to build on the skills you've already developed while addressing any gaps in your preparation. If you complete the program successfully, you would be assigned to special operations units where your logistics background would be valuable in addition to your tactical capabilities. Admiral paused. I won't lie to you, Santos. This program will be extremely challenging, and there will be people watching for you to fail. But if you succeed, you'll be changing the military for the better. The decision was obvious, but Maria took time to consider the full implications. Accepting the offer would mean leaving behind the safe, predictable life she had known as a supply clerk and entering a world where failure could have life-and-death consequences. It would also mean accepting responsibility for proving that personnel like her deserved opportunities in special operations. Sir, I accept the offer, Maria said without hesitation. When do I start? Admiral smiled. Immediately. You'll be transferred to a special training facility in Virginia where you'll begin an accelerated program designed specifically for your situation. The training will be intense, but based on your recent performance, I'm confident you can handle it. The next month passed in a blur of activity. Maria found herself at a classified facility in rural Virginia, undergoing training that was more demanding than anything she had experienced with Chief. The instructors were all active or retired special operations personnel who had been handpicked for their ability to assess and develop unconventional candidates. The training covered every aspect of special operations from advanced marksmanship and tactical movement to intelligence analysis and leadership under pressure. What made it different from traditional programs was the focus on integrating her existing skills with new capabilities rather than starting from scratch. The instructors recognized that her logistics background gave her insights into operational planning that pure combat specialists often lacked. Master Chief Petty Officer Sandra Williams, the program's senior instructor, explained the philosophy during Maria's first week. "Santos, we're not trying to make you into a copy of existing special operations personnel. We're trying to help you become something new and better. Your combination of tactical skills and logistics expertise could be invaluable in modern special operations, where success often depends as much on supply chains as it does on firepower." The physical training was grueling but familiar. Maria's conditioning with Chief had prepared her well for the demands of special operations training, and she consistently performed at the top of her class in fitness evaluations. More importantly, she demonstrated the mental toughness that separated successful special operations candidates from those who couldn't handle the pressure. The tactical training revealed both strengths and areas for improvement. Maria's marksmanship was exceptional, and her ability to think clearly under pressure impressed even veteran instructors. However, she needed additional work in areas like underwater operations, advanced demolitions, and specialized communication systems that weren't covered in her informal training. What surprised everyone, including Maria herself, was her natural aptitude for leadership. During training exercises that required coordination between multiple teams, she consistently emerged as an effective leader who could balance tactical considerations with logistical constraints. Her ability to see the big picture while managing operational details made her valuable in complex scenarios that challenged other candidates. 8 weeks into the program, Maria faced her biggest test yet. The instructors arranged a comprehensive exercise that simulated a complex special operations mission requiring coordination between multiple units, management of sophisticated supply chains, and adaptation to constantly changing tactical situations. The exercise was designed to push candidates beyond their comfort zones and reveal their true capabilities under extreme pressure. The scenario involved a hostage rescue operation in a simulated urban environment. Maria was assigned as the operations coordinator, responsible for managing logistics, intelligence, and tactical coordination between assault teams. The exercise was conducted around the clock for 72 hours, with constant changes in mission parameters and simulated equipment failures that required immediate adaptation. During the second day of the exercise, a simulated intelligence update indicated that the hostages had been moved to a new location that wasn't accessible using the original plan. The assault teams were already in position. Supplies were distributed according to the initial scheme, and changing the plan would require complete reorganization of the entire operation. Most candidates in Maria's position would have requested a pause to replan the mission. Instead, Maria analyzed the new situation, identified alternative approaches, and coordinated a real-time modification of the operation that allowed the assault teams to adapt to the new scenario without compromising their effectiveness. Her solution required innovative use of available resources and precise coordination between multiple moving parts, but it worked flawlessly. Master Chief Williams observed the exercise from the command center, and her assessment was unequivocal. "I've been involved in special operations training for 15 years, and I've never seen a candidate manage complex logistics under pressure like Santos just did. She has the kind of tactical flexibility and operational thinking that we need in senior special operations personnel." The exercise concluded successfully, with all simulated hostages rescued and minimal casualties among the assault teams. During the debrief, instructors noted that Maria's coordination had been the key factor in the mission's success. More importantly, they observed that her approach to problem-solving represented a new model for how special operations could be conducted in modern conflicts. As Maria's training program neared completion, word of her progress reached senior military leaders who had been following the pilot program with great interest. Admiral visited the training facility personally to observe Maria's final evaluation and discuss plans for her future assignment. The final evaluation was designed as a comprehensive test of everything Maria had learned during the program. She was given command of a simulated special operations mission that required integration of tactical assault, intelligence gathering, and complex logistics management. The scenario was based on real-world operations and included all the complications and pressures that characterized modern special operations. Maria's performance during the final evaluation exceeded even the high expectations that had developed during her training. She demonstrated not only technical competence in all required areas, but also the kind of innovative thinking and leadership capability that indicated potential for senior command positions in the special operations community. When Admiral met with Maria after the evaluation, her message was direct and encouraging. "Santos, you've not only completed this program successfully, you've redefined what we think is possible for personnel with non-traditional backgrounds. Your combination of technical skills, tactical thinking, and leadership ability represents exactly the kind of capability we need for future operations." The Admiral continued, "I'm prepared to offer you an assignment that will put your skills to the test in real-world operations. You'll be joining a special operations unit that specializes in complex missions requiring both tactical excellence and sophisticated logistics coordination. It's exactly the kind of assignment where your unique background will be most valuable." Maria felt a deep sense of satisfaction and anticipation. After years of preparation and months of intense training, she was finally getting the opportunity to serve in the role she had always believed she was meant for. But she also understood that her success would have implications far beyond her own career. "Ma'am," Maria said, "I understand that my performance in this assignment will affect opportunities for others who want to follow a similar path. I'm prepared for that responsibility." Admiral smiled. "Santos, I think you're going to do more than just succeed in your new assignment. I think you're going to prove that diversity of backgrounds and perspectives makes special operations stronger and more effective." She paused. "And I think you're going to inspire a new generation of personnel who might never have considered special operations as a possibility." As Maria prepared for her new assignment, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From an underestimated supply clerk to a proven special operations professional, she had overcome barriers that many people believed were insurmountable. But more importantly, she had proven that excellence could come from unexpected places, and that traditional assumptions about who belonged in elite military units needed to be reconsidered. The road ahead would be challenging, with new missions, new responsibilities, and constant pressure to prove that her success wasn't a fluke. But Maria felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had proven herself under fire, completed the most demanding training the military had to offer, and earned the respect of some of the most elite warriors in the world. 6 months after completing her specialized training, Lieutenant Junior Grade Maria Santos stood on the deck of USS Intrepid, watching the sun rise over the Persian Gulf. Her promotion had come through 2 weeks earlier, along with orders to join SEAL Team 7 for a deployment that would test everything she had learned during her transformation from supply clerk to special operations officer. The weight of her new responsibilities was significant, but so was her confidence in her ability to meet the challenges ahead. The team she had joined was commanded by Lieutenant Commander David Park, a veteran of multiple deployments who had initially been skeptical about integrating an officer with Maria's unconventional background. However, after working with her for several weeks during pre-deployment training, Park had become one of her strongest advocates. Her ability to coordinate complex operations while maintaining tactical awareness had impressed even the most experienced team members. "Santos," Park called out as she stood at the rail, "we've got a mission briefing in 10 minutes. Intelligence has identified a target that's going to require exactly the kind of capabilities you bring to the team." Maria followed Park to the secure briefing room, where she found the rest of the team already assembled. Chief Petty Officer Mike Torres, whom she had worked with during her first rescue mission in Sicily, greeted her with a smile. Torres had specifically requested assignment to the same unit when he learned that Maria would be joining the team, citing her exceptional performance under pressure. The briefing was conducted by Commander Sarah Mitchell, who had flown out to the ship specifically to oversee this mission. The target was a sophisticated smuggling operation that was moving weapons and explosives to terrorist organizations throughout the Middle East. What made the operation particularly challenging was its integration with legitimate shipping and logistics networks, requiring personnel who understood both tactical operations and complex supply chain management. "The target facility is disguised as a legitimate warehouse and shipping operation," Mitchell explained, pointing to satellite images displayed on the briefing room screen. Intelligence indicates that they're using sophisticated methods to hide weapons shipments among normal commercial cargo. They've also implemented security measures that suggest military or special operations training among their personnel. She continued, "The mission requires simultaneous objectives. We need to gather intelligence about their network, disrupt their current operations, and capture key personnel for interrogation. Most importantly, we need to do this without alerting other parts of the organization that might escape before follow-up operations can be conducted." Maria studied the intelligence materials and immediately recognized the complexity of the challenge. The target facility was located in a busy commercial port, surrounded by legitimate businesses and civilian traffic. Any operation would need to be precise and carefully coordinated to avoid collateral damage and maintain operational security. "Ma'am," Maria said, "this facility appears to be using standard commercial logistics practices to hide their illegal activities. That suggests they have someone with professional supply chain expertise managing their operations. Understanding their logistics patterns might give us insights into their vulnerabilities." Commander Mitchell nodded approvingly. "Exactly right, Santos. That's why you're perfect for this mission. Your combination of tactical training and logistics background allows you to see things that pure combat specialists might miss." Over the next week, Maria worked with the team to develop a comprehensive mission plan that integrated intelligence gathering, tactical assault, and operational disruption. Her role would be multifaceted. She would lead the intelligence collection effort, coordinate the timing of tactical operations, and manage the logistics of extracting both personnel and captured materials. The plan she developed was more sophisticated than anything the team had previously attempted. Instead of a simple direct assault, Maria proposed a coordinated operation that would simultaneously target multiple aspects of the smuggling network. Her approach would minimize the risk of alerting other elements of the organization while maximizing the intelligence value of the operation. "The key is understanding their operational rhythm," Maria explained to the team during a planning session. "Intelligence indicates that they receive major shipments every 2 weeks, process them over a 3-day period, and then distribute them through established networks. If we time our operation correctly, we can capture both incoming materials and outgoing shipments, along with the personnel who manage the entire process." Chief Torres was impressed by the complexity and sophistication of Maria's planning. "Santos, this is graduate-level operational planning. You're thinking 3 steps ahead of the targets and considering variables that most of us wouldn't even notice." The mission launched on a moonless night in early December. Maria's team approached the target facility using small boats that allowed them to blend with normal maritime traffic in the busy port. The initial insertion was flawless, with team members reaching their assigned positions without detection or alerting port security. Maria's position was a concealed observation post overlooking the target facility, where she could coordinate the entire operation while conducting intelligence collection. From her position, she could see the layout of the facility, monitor security patrols, and identify key personnel and activities that matched intelligence predictions. What she observed confirmed her analysis of the operation's sophistication. The facility was using genuine commercial shipping procedures to disguise illegal activities, and the security measures were more advanced than intelligence had indicated. The targets weren't just criminals. They were professionals who understood both logistics operations and counterintelligence techniques. "Team leader, this is Overwatch," Maria transmitted to Lieutenant Commander Park. "Confirm enhanced security measures beyond intelligence estimates. Target personnel demonstrate advanced training and operational discipline. Recommend modified approach to account for increased threat level." Park's response was immediate. "Overwatch, provide assessment and recommendations." Maria had anticipated this possibility and had prepared contingency plans. "Team leader, recommend delayed initiation to allow for real-time intelligence collection and tactical adjustment. Current security posture suggests they may be expecting some form of interference." Over the next 2 hours, Maria conducted detailed surveillance while coordinating with team members in other positions. Her logistics background allowed her to understand the facility's operations in ways that revealed vulnerabilities invisible to conventional tactical analysis. She identified patterns in security patrols, timing of operational activities, and coordination between different elements of the organization. More importantly, She recognized that the facility was preparing for a major shipment that wasn't reflected in the intelligence briefing. The increased activity and heightened security suggested that something significant was about to happen, creating both opportunities and risks for the mission. Team leader, this is Overwatch, Maria transmitted. Intelligence indicates major operational activity planned for tonight. Recommend immediate implementation of capture operation to prevent loss of high-value targets and materials. Park trusted Maria's assessment completely. Overwatch, you are cleared to initiate intelligence collection. All teams stand by for coordinated assault on your signal. Maria moved from her observation position to a location that allowed direct access to the facility's information systems. Her training had included advanced technical skills for intelligence collection, and she was prepared to extract digital information while the assault teams secured physical materials and personnel. The next phase of the operation required Maria to infiltrate the facility's office areas while avoiding detection by security personnel. Her small size and advanced tactical movement skills allowed her to navigate through the complex without triggering alarms or alerting guards. Within 20 minutes, she had accessed computer systems and begun downloading critical intelligence about the smuggling network. What she discovered exceeded all expectations. The facility wasn't just a regional operation. It was a central hub for an international network that supplied weapons to terrorist organizations across 3 continents. The intelligence she was gathering would provide the basis for dozens of follow-up operations that could disrupt terrorist activities globally. However, Maria also discovered that the organization had detected unusual activity in the area and was implementing emergency procedures to protect their operation. Time was running out before they would begin destroying evidence and evacuating key personnel. Team leader, this is Overwatch, Maria transmitted urgently. Target organization is implementing emergency protocols. Recommend immediate assault to prevent evidence destruction and personnel escape. Park made the decision immediately. All teams initiate assault. Overwatch, continue intelligence collection and prepare for extraction. The assault began with coordinated breaching of multiple entry points, designed to overwhelm the facility's defenses and prevent organized resistance. Maria continued her intelligence collection while monitoring the tactical situation through her communication system. The operation was proceeding successfully, but the targets were proving more capable than expected. Overwatch, this is Team 2, came an urgent transmission. We've encountered heavy resistance in the storage area. Target personnel have military-grade weapons and training. Request immediate support. Maria realized that the mission was reaching a critical point. She could continue her intelligence collection, which was producing invaluable information, or she could provide direct support to team members who were facing unexpected resistance. The decision was obvious. Team leader, this is Overwatch, relocating to provide direct support to Team 2. Intelligence collection 70% complete with critical information secured. Maria secured her equipment and moved through the facility toward the storage area where Team 2 was engaged. Her route took her through areas that hadn't been cleared by the assault teams, requiring her to move tactically while avoiding detection by potentially hostile personnel. As she approached the storage area, Maria could hear the intensity of the firefight and understood that the situation was serious. The targets had taken defensive positions among shipping containers and were using the complex terrain to their advantage. Traditional assault tactics were being neutralized by the sophisticated defensive measures the targets had implemented. Maria reached a position that overlooked the storage area and immediately began assessing the tactical situation. Her training in both special operations and logistics allowed her to understand the defensive setup in ways that pure combat specialists might miss. The targets were using the storage layout to create interlocking fields of fire that prevented direct assault. Team 2. Most importantly, she had opened a door that could never be closed again, creating opportunities for others who had the same dreams she had pursued for so many years. Operations community. The only question was whether she would survive long enough to make the most of the opportunity's expectations. She was ready to show them all what she could really do.